you. Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Really excited that today is finally here. So today our topic is striking a balance between meritocracy and gender inclusiveness. In the last few weeks, there's been a lot of much needed conversations regarding the value of women in society, and their role as well. And today we're addressing it as it relates particularly to the creative industry. So we thought there's no better assemblage of people to talk about creativity in the industry than Amos themselves. Women like you who are changing the face of creativity in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria, but in Africa as well. And so I'll start by introducing Tola. Tola Obi is CEO of CenterspreadGrey, as well as a board member at Orange Academy. Hi, Tola. We also have Biodun Adefila. Biodun Adefila is the Chief Operating Officer at SO&U, as well as a Vice Chairman of Women in Advertising Committee. So she's giving women a voice in the creative industry. Thank you for that.
Thank
and then
you.
we have Ngozi. Ngozi is a consumer brand expert, as well as a host and founder of one of my favorite and funniest YouTube channel shows, the NG Show. I especially love the episode with your girl. Thank you for that. Thank you for making us smile. Ngozi also is bringing on board her experience on the client side, managing brands like Heineken. So we will have a final panelist joining us as well. She is Funmilayo Falola. She's the head brand and marketing communications at Wema Bank. Like Ngozi, she will be bringing on board her client side experience to this topic. Yeah. Okay, so let's get right into it. So the topic of gender inclusiveness and women in general, as I said earlier, is one that's prevalent, and just trying to understand the value of women, the place of women, and where we can draw the line, if there's a line to be drawn, between meritocracy and gender inclusiveness. So, Ngozi, I'll start with you. Have there been moments in your career climb where you faced discrimination based on your gender? And if there were, how did you overcome this?
Off the top of my head, there have been many instances, but I'm now trying to think of which one best serves the purpose for this panel session. And the one I can think of happened maybe 7 years ago. And it was a very simple conversation where we had to collaborate as a team to produce a certain 360-degree campaign. And so while this project was going on, there were many legs, of course, to this project, and one of them involved a consumer safari, which simply meant that we wanted to go out into the trade and talk to consumers in a real way.
Yeah.
But because I sell beer, that meant beer parlors. So this wasn't a premium channel thing. This wasn't for the Heineken brand. It was for a mainstream lager, because we had acquired a mainstream lager based on a merger with another company. And so we had to go into the beer parlor. And so I was, interestingly, the only female on the team. That wasn't a discrimination thing. It just happened that I was the only female on this cross-functional team. So when it was time to go to the beer safari, we're supposed to go the next day. They said, "Oh, Angie, don't worry, you don't have to come." And I thought, "Oh, okay, why?" You know, we're going at night. I thought, okay, that's fine. So, Angie, beer parlor at night. Your husband, uncle. I thought, and because I'm badly behaved, as you maybe know, based on my YouTube show, I said, "And your wife, uncle?" I said, "What do I mean? My wife, day house." I said, "My husband, day house." And of course, the conversation ensued, and they said no. And then one of them called me to the side, who was a senior colleague, who reckoned that he was the soothsayer who had thought about the thing, and called me to the side and said, "NG, don't mind them. You know how guys are." But that honestly, he understands how it is with women, and looking after your son and being home for your husband. So honestly, because he won't count against you, you don't have to come. I get it. So what I've learned over the years is that I don't park these situations anymore. As a younger brand manager, I would just let it go because in reality, it is a boys' club, especially in my industry. And so if you made a big fuss or a big hoopla about certain things, you would be excluded. And that's me being real. So you need to make a choice between wanting your voice to be heard or wanting to rise in your career. And it depends on where you are in your career path. And at that time, because I was at a certain level, I said to him, I know that what you think you're doing is the right thing for me, but I'm trying to do my job. So please don't treat me differently. My husband is fine. He understands. And he said, okay, that's, you know. And so eventually, of course, the next day, we all went for the safari and there was a lot of yappy, 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 yappy. And I simply told all of them, guys, I think you don't see the problem with this, but it's actually a problem to think that because I'm a woman, there's something wrong with me coming on this safari because my husband will be offended or someone will be offended. You can't do that. So for me, it was a simple conversation, but what I tell younger brand managers who are female, right, is first of all, do your work. And as long as you're doing your work, the rest of it, you can always discuss. I promise you. Luckily now things are different. These young girls are not here for that rubbish, by the way. But so what I do tell them, and the way that I overcame that was addressing it head on with the person that was throwing the sexism at me.
Biodun, do you have similar experiences where in your career climb you've faced moments of discrimination based on your gender?
No, actually not. I think I've been blessed that way, but that doesn't mean that I do not understand, just like Ngozi has said, that there are women all over the world going through situations like that. In fact, globally around the world, for every 100 men that are promoted or hired into senior positions, there are 72 women promoted and hired. So what that means is that there's fewer representation of women in senior positions. So of course, that's it's the reality, but it's the kind of thing that one is trying to ensure doesn't go on. Because at the end of the day, like Ngozi has said, the way she advises younger females to address the situation, when you do your job and everybody can see it and no one can deny that you are doing a great job, it's only an idiot that will see an advantage and then decide, okay, because she's a woman, I won't go with it. So it's for women to take on the responsibility of honing their skills so that nobody can put anything before them and use it as arguments for not allowing them to be who they can really be. So yes, I haven't experienced it, but I can empathize with women who do. And research is all over the place that these things happen. But we are gathered here, for instance, to discuss ways forward with regards to these kind of situations. So very strongly, let the women coming up, let them hone their skills. Let nobody at all be able to put anything up against them, and they will do well.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so Tola, one of the arguments for gender inclusiveness is that it's a matter of fairness. That there's the reason why women should be involved in the creative process and creative leadership in particular is that we just want to be fair. But is there more to why the creative industry should strive to reduce barriers for advancement to women? Is there a direct benefit for the business, for the creative process that women can bring to the table?
So I find that question a little bit tricky because the word fairness implies some level of, I think I don't have the language now, but it implies this level of charity, like the power holders decide that they are magnanimous enough to be fair to the gender that is discriminated against. So I struggle with that word. I don't know if that's the right framing. I think it is a matter of reality. Like, you are only going to be deluding yourself if you don't realize that the buying power, even just before you even go into the economics of it, from a population standpoint, in a city like Lagos, you have more women than men, right? I think it's 55-45. It's even more impactful when you look at people that register businesses and own businesses in a city like Lagos. Controls almost 80% of the economic power of the country, right? So what I'm being quite micro here. It just behooves me to imagine that your surroundings doesn't sort of spur you on to realize that if you're in a room selling or deciding on a product feature or on a campaign message, and you exclude, for the sake of simplicity, half of your population, you are doing a disservice to yourself. There's no way that whatever you leave that room with is prepared for the market if you don't have women in the room. So maybe language fails me. It's definitely not a question of fairness, just a question of common sense. You know, like, what are you doing if you're going to decide to go to a marketplace that you haven't considered the perspective of half of the population? Now, sort of going back to the broader question around the value of the benefits. I mean, like, cut it how you want to cut it. Like, you cannot come to a marketplace with a message intended for the general public without considering the voice, the preferences, the nuances of what everyone that's a stakeholder has to offer. To be honest, I think my gender is my biggest advantage in most rooms that I'm in. And I in no way, shape or form care about men enough to want to be them or to envy them. I don't hide this either. This bias is a very strong bias. And so I more like to say I think women are more creative, only because my bias is on 100. I find men to be valuable, but I find the conversation incomplete when women are not included. Like, you can't even start the discussion without women, right? So I think what often happens, though, is that even when these rooms are well balanced, so you have both genders present, the work that comes out it ends up being gendered anyway, so it ends up being quite stereotypical. So you find women playing very gendered roles, men playing very gendered roles, you know, so the woman is always in the kitchen, she's always the one, you know, cooking for the kids or getting them ready. You know, I find Nigerian ads, being specific to ads now on TV, to look like they did 30 years ago, even though the rooms are more dynamic, the brands are more dynamic. So I think what's happening is that even though the marketplace is evolving, the rooms where decisions are made are evolving, our culture isn't. Our culture is insistent that women are one thing and one thing only, and that we can't be anything but that. So I think the work is in changing that narrative. Like, I'm tired of seeing, I saw an ad recently, it's like, I don't want to be this woman. Like, I don't aspire to be her, where she's running around trying to feed her 3 children at God knows what, and her husband is nowhere to be found, you know, so there's no accountability on the part of the men. Like, you know, because the thing about media is that media is a reflection of the culture, right? And it's a reflection of where the culture is aiming to go to. So how we end up in 2020 with these ads still circulating, you know, it begs the question, who are these decision makers and which market, or who is the audience in the market that they think they're talking to? So are we not paying attention to the tensions in the culture? You know, like, if you spend some time on Twitter, Nigerian Twitter, like, you can't possibly assume, like, Twitter, now I'll caveat that with saying that Twitter may not necessarily be representative, but it's a sort of like a town square. Like, you sort of get a sense for where people are going mentally with issues around gender. So who are these people that you're talking to? So yeah, I think, you know, the benefits beyond just being half of the population is that you are missing a voice. And so the decisions around who is in the room and who makes these decisions for who is in the marketplace, like, we need to sort of follow that line. You know, it ends up on somebody's screen, probably watching YouTube. Who is that woman? Who is that guy? What's that message you're trying to pass on to them?
Okay, so I wanted to take this next point to Funmilayo. Funmilayo, is this some of the things that you take into consideration? Is this some of the factors that you take into consideration when choosing an agency team to work with? For instance, do you consider whether they have a truly diverse and gender inclusive team? As Tola said, that would impact quality of work that you'll be able to produce.
Hey, Dara, thank you. To be honest, do we take in gender? Not really. However, what I find is usually when you have a team that you're working with and there's a woman on that team, there's always a different perspective. And so it's easier for you to get more views and different ways to look at the situation at hand. But do we necessarily look at it? I'm not sure that it's a deciding factor. Also, because the creative industry, what I also know is that a lot of the agencies, yes, they do, they have started including more women, but what you find is that they're quite male dominated. And so sometimes it's not just a function of the people working in there at the moment. You select your agency based on the competence of the agency. That's first and foremost what you're looking for. Then you look at the people that they put on your account. But I can't say, oh, I want to know that if there's a woman, then that would be my decision for choosing that agency. I have, however, worked with a number of women who work in agencies across the different functions. And I find that it's very interesting working with them because we just see things differently.
So aside from the system and the barriers to entry that are sometimes in place, there's also ourselves. There's also the fact that sometimes women struggle with believing that they have value to bring to the table. So, Biodun, have there been times where you have probably ever questioned or doubted that you are deserving of the progress or success that you have attained? And if you have, how did you overcome it? How can other young women listening benefit from that experience?
Okay, thanks, Dara. So yes, I've experienced it, and it was not funny at all. It was a while back. So then I just made account director in SONU. And this was something I'd been looking forward to. I had worked very hard for it, and then it happened, and I was like, truly, I mean, it was too good to be true. So what had happened really was that I came from elsewhere to join SONU, and it was a totally different culture in SONU. It was like I was starting a new life all over again. It was tough in the beginning. In fact, it got so bad at some point that I had an audience with the MD, and it was, guy, shape up or ship out. It was that bad. But then I determined in myself that if the day I leave this agency, it will be on my own terms. And then I started to work at it. And I worked so hard that I got that account directorship. And then when I got it, then I said, yes, you did it. And then, each day will bring its own challenges. Things may want to fluster you, get you flustered. But then you keep going back to that thing within you that, you've built up strength, you've built up confidence. So you're able to go back and know that it's all you. And once you have that, you can overcome anything. Just keep saying that to yourself and go back to that thing that built you up in the first place. You'll be fine.
Amazing. And Ngozi, you like the other women on this panel also have a strong personality, but for women who may not have found that strength yet, who may not believe in themselves yet, how did you build that strength? How did you build that confidence? And how can you recommend that they go about it?
So I think I already had it. I don't remember having to build confidence, and because of where I work, because I started there early and I've had the benefit of having been there quite a while, I've built a certain strength or something. I don't know what you would call it. But when I think about young people who don't have it, that is where I believe that other women or people, and not necessarily just women, have a role to play in helping to give other people a voice. But you can only do so much as someone else helping somebody. So what I try to tell people is to find their voice. You have to find your voice. you know, when people say things like, you know, the system and I did this and I did that, I'm like, listen, no one is responsible for your career but you. So you have to find your voice and decide, because to be honest, and this is why I don't judge people, there are women who, you know, because of the career that I want to, or the path that I've drawn for myself, I will accept this. Like a guy saying, what's wrong with you? You didn't see your boobs or something. And there's some that just laugh it off. Because if you don't laugh it off, when they get into the room where they're talking about who should we bring in here, they say that one that nobody can even play with her. She wants to be someone that people can play with. For her, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, okay, good for you. For some other people, it's like, what? Please, Victor, don't, I'm sorry, you can't speak to me like that. I don't accept it. La, 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 la. When they get in the room, they say, they go, nah. And it may affect her career in this one company. What I say to people like that is that you have to get to a point where it's no longer just about you. It's about a bigger group of people. It's about the fact that if you let things slide, then for that guy, it passes on to other women who may not be able to speak up for themselves. So I think in summary, what I'm saying is I never had to find that voice. I always had it. For people who don't have that voice, find someone who has it to attach yourself to so you can learn. And then the rest of us who have it and have gone to a certain level, we have a role to play. Someone who I don't do mentorship thing very well, but Ethel, she's a senior colleague of mine who is no longer in Nigeria, but she was like the first female brewer in Nigerian breweries. And if you know anything about brewing, they didn't hire women. It just wasn't the thing. It's like sales. They just didn't hire women. And so when she started as a shift brewer, and she started climbing, I mean, the amount of obstacles she had to overcome, I needed to attach myself to her to learn the ropes. So yeah, I think the responsibility is on both people, the person and the rest of us. You have to find someone to help. I believe in it. I have like 4. They didn't choose me, I chose them.
Definitely. Because the issue of gender inclusivity would be nothing if the women themselves don't believe that they are worthy of being included in the conversation. So fighting through that imposter syndrome and knowing that they have value to bring to the table. And building on what you said about women lifting women and the mentorship, one of the unspoken challenges on the subject of mentorship is that senior women can often feel unrelatable, unapproachable. And so some people tend to move to men or just not go for mentorship opportunities at all. Would you agree?
Yes, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, it's a difference between, I don't know, Michelle Obama and Laura Bush. I think that, and because I'm Igbo, I don't know how other cultures are, but there's this thing where women, and when we say senior women, for me, senior women are in their 50s, or maybe late 40s and 50s, right? And when I think about it, I think what has happened is that it's an Igbo culture thing sometimes where he's like, I suffered. Who are you not to suffer? So you want to be my client. All these young girls of nowadays, you see that word, that phrase, young girls of nowadays. I just want to blow you. Who is a young girl of nowadays? What did nowadays do to you? So I think it's that I went through it. Who are you to think that you shouldn't go through it? But who are you not? Why should I go through it? Do you know what I mean? And I have found a lot of women very unapproachable, and that's the honest truth. I found that, especially in my industry, again, I don't know, it differs, but because I'm selling beer, for lack of a better word, you can walk into a room wearing heels, you know, there's a certain walk, and the woman already has a problem with you. I don't know the reason why. I apologize. I want to help. Yes, please. I don't know the reason.
That experience is universal.
Okay, that's good to know, because I keep feeling that if I think about the way that I have had to adjust my dressing and my demeanor, when I see, say, my agency counterparts, like a young account person in an agency. They seem a bit more, their personalities come through more than certain structured industries. But just to not deviate from what Dara asked me, I do find certain women at that level more, not all, but if I count to the 10 in my head, I love research. I love numbers. So I always do things like out of 10 people, simply because I actually put 10 of my friends and ask them, and out of that 10, 5, like that. So out of the 10 women I know in senior positions, like one of my senior mentors, Adefila, who is a Standard Chartered, she's so approachable. So when I count 10 of them, there's like 3 that I would feel comfortable to go to, and I don't know why. I don't know the reason. I don't know the reason.
That sounds interesting. Sorry if I may just cut in a little. I kind of, well, I like the fact that you said some women. So yes, it does happen in some cases. But again, that's not been my experience, because I actually grew up on the shoulder of a very, very strong woman, Julia Oku. And there are others like that, you know. So for me, sometimes maybe it's an issue of perception. So, you know, it's like we generally think mothers-in-law are terrible. They are horrors. But it's not all of them, you know. So for me, I think when people are in senior positions, they are pressured. They are busy. They don't have time for frivolous stuff. So it may just be that their countenance, you see their face, you are like, I can't go and meet this one. No. So maybe it's more of an issue of, if you find somebody that you want to mentor you, then ask around, how can I approach this person? Then it is your responsibility. Find a way to get through to them. I grew up on the shoulders of giants, and so I'm very, very, very willing to mentor others. So my summary, in short, is that it is not all women.
I
Maybe
agree.
some of them are
Not
like
all.
that. Yeah.
My experience has been majority, and not because I didn't, because I've had an issue. I've had people who couldn't approach me because they thought, Ngozi was this type of, and when I get that feedback,
and you are not like that.
Hang on, when I get that feedback, but I got the feedback because some others could come and say, Ngozi, you know that they said, there are people who nobody can go and say they said, and this is not because I sat back, because I don't have that personality. I will go to your office. I will knock on your door. I'll say, hi, good morning. I mean, again, just there's no need in this forum. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm separated. And I remember vividly someone in my office telling me, a woman saying to me, don't let people know. I said, okay, I wasn't going to anyway, because quite frankly, it's not their business. So, but let's park that. Why? What would be the reason? And her thing was, you'll be treated differently if a man is not covering you as your career goes on.
Okay, that's
What year was this?
2016. No, 17. In fact, I was up for expatriation. That's what happened. I was going to go abroad. And I was telling, it was already almost a done deal, and we're discussing some things. And she said I should just, I said, the only reason you know is because, I'm not even sure why she knew. I think I was feeling my form was a HR thing. So I was talking about how, you know, it's just my son, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I should make sure I hush it. Okay, I wasn't going to not hush it, but why is this and it was discussed that it might be a problem if people now know that, oh, there's no man covering you. So that, maybe I've met, okay.
Wow. Tola, what's your experience been with regards?
It's very similar to Ngozi's. I feel like Biodun has a very unique experience because, as Ngozi mentioned, I've surveyed my friends. Like I've surveyed people within like my sphere of influence, and it's kind of general in that by your gate, as you enter a room, the women are the most antagonistic. You know, up until I think maybe about 6 or 7 months ago, I hadn't met a woman, either mostly client side, that I could say, I actually like you. You are actually a good person. You know, like I've been in this industry for 10 years. For me to be able to say that, no. So, but I think I think some of the other points are correct in that it might be a function of perception, and so the onus is on the seeker to break, the wall between power structures. But I think to your question was around, why do younger mentees or potential mentees seem to gravitate to men? There's a patriarchy function there, right? That's not necessarily about how more experienced or more recognizable women portray themselves. I think that younger women that are coming into the marketplace now need to understand that they are fighting a battle that's kind of a quiet battle that they didn't necessarily opt in for, right? So from the moment you apply for a job, your gender is a factor. When that offer is coming to you, they're considering things that if you were a guy, they would never consider. One thing that they might consider is your age. So are you married or are you single? They may even ask you if you're married or if you plan to get married. And you might even get questions that are direct enough to ask you about your womb plans. Have you had a child? Do you plan to have a child? By the way, these questions are illegal. Nigerian labor law does not permit you to ask these questions. But you find that the culture permeates it. So in fact, I've seen when we hire people, I always balk at the question that asks for your age. I could not give a shit less, So women need to realize that the patriarchy is real. The patriarchy is also upheld by women. I find that one of the strongest pillars in patriarchy is the women that are holding it up. And so there's an onus on them to challenge that by being bold enough to aspire to be close to other women, even if they seem unapproachable. I also have a reputation of not being approachable, but I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it because I find that it weeds out people that are time wasters. And so I like to pick people that I think would not waste my time. And I think by virtue of the fact that I've been here for a while, I'm allowed that privilege, or I've just said to myself, you're okay to take that privilege for yourself. And so when I encounter people, be that either client side or within the agency, or, I've been in meetings whereby I've noticed like another agency, like you've been like cross-functional agency meetings, and I'll notice that the girl on the other side from a different agency is quiet. After the meeting is over, I'm going to go and meet her. Do not do that, And I do that because I realize that patriarchy that sits next to her tells her that her voice is not valid, only because she's a woman. And the responsibility is on me to challenge that. Now, I might not necessarily benefit from that because people receive those kinds of messages differently, but I hope it's an inspiration to her that you can occupy that space. You are in that room because you earned your seat at the table. Now you need to actualize that earning in that you cannot sit in a 3-hour meeting and say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? By default, if you have been brought into a meeting, you need to speak. So yeah, I've had a pretty horrible experience in terms of how women in the industry have treated me, but I haven't really allowed that to color my how I want to pay forward, and that when I see the opportunity, I will go for it. I will spend 3 hours teaching you how to copy edit, because I think if you understand this, it will make you more valuable within the agency, but also the day you decide to leave. I also want to challenge the patriarchy, because the patriarchy is very dangerous. The patriarchy prevents us from growing as an industry and as a country, because the more that you tell women that because they are women, they are somehow less than or not able to, the more you remove the opportunities that woman being in that room can be the next great whatever. I would like in the next 10 years that I am not an exception. I should not be the only, however, like it just should not be, it should be normal. It should be normal that if you have 30 agencies in an industry, half are run by women, half are run by men. It should just be normal, and it should not be in special cases of nepotism. Like it just shouldn't be. And the reason is, I've worked with quite a few women. They typically are better than the men. Like they have stronger personalities, they have stronger visions, they're more willing to challenge the status quo. Men have just designed this work to be like, we'll leave that for a different conversation. But I hope the point is clear in that you, as a young person, challenge the patriarchy. The men that you think are approachable are only doing that because it benefits them. The women that you think might not be, truly might not be, but the onus is on you to try. If you try 50 and 5 workouts, that's all right. At least you tried those 50. You've learned something. The knowledge is for you to take on to your next experience. Don't be comfortable with the status quo. The status quo got us to this point. Where we are is not good. Yeah? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we've explored a bit the role women have to play in challenging these perceptions and helping to lift other women up, like you did at that meeting. But Funmilayo, can we have your point of view on what role you think men should be playing in this conversation? How can we get them involved in a meaningful and practical way, such that it's not just only women lifting women, but men lifting women as well?
Thanks, Dara. So I'm actually quite excited by what Ngozi and Tola have said. The truth is, I think there is a, what do they call it? A stereotype issue in the whole matter. And I guess for someone like me, the only issue, I haven't had just a gender issue. If you see my height, then you'd understand. I'm quite down to earth. So it's not just, so imagine this scrawny looking girl coming and talking where you find men, and what exactly, what can she say? And I found that at the beginning, I had to tell people that the same 4 years you spent in university, that's the same 4 years that I spent in university. There were days when I had to say to people that I didn't sleep with my lecturer to get my grade. I actually studied that. So sometimes what you find is that people look at you, she's tiny, she's a girl. What could she possibly have to say? One thing that I always tell women around me is you must always have something to say. And don't have something to say just because you must talk. If it is of no value, you better keep quiet. So for me, I always tell a lot of people that first and foremost, you must know the job. So in as much as, yes, I support what Tola and Ngozi have said in terms of seeking knowledge, there also needs to be a form of seeking knowledge within structure. As both of them have also said, I am hard. Yeah, I'm not the nicest woman to people. But the truth is, I think that I am.
Funmilayo is them. That woman.
Yes, I think that I am very nice. And for those who come close enough, see, what I know is that, yes, Ngozi said something about because some women think you need to pay your dues. I wouldn't say I am totally against it, but I must say that there's a part of it that I support. I wouldn't call it paying of dues. What I would call it is you need to have a reason. There are a lot of unserious people that exist nowadays. And if you take the time out to listen to all of them, you'd have a problem. And I'm not talking about women only. I'm talking about men. I'm talking about women. But Tola did say something, and it's that who profits at the end of the day? What you find is that the men profit a lot. So when you ask me that what role should men have, the truth is the men already have a role. They're already there. Ngozi said it, it's a boys' club already. So when you come into it, and I don't think it's about just your industry. I've worked in the creative industry before I came into the bank. And I remember in one of the agencies where I worked, the, okay, I'm going to try and protect his, but we were told that we wanted an all-girls client service team. And I had to ask, what does that mean? Unfortunately for them, we were about 8 girls and 5 of us got pregnant at the same time. So guess what? So he had to add men to the team. But my point is that there was a stereotype and we didn't even see it. We didn't even know. We were excited to be. So they had framed the information for us in an all-girls client service team. So it was even something we used to sell the agency. Oh, we have an all-girls client service team. But it was much later that I realized that that was crap. So the men already are sat at the table. The men already are having the conversations. They already know what to do. They're the ones that at the meeting, they're going to come to you and, sorry, excuse me, they're going to come to you and say, oh, please let her speak. They're the ones that are going to do stuff like that. But you find out that at the end of the day, that's really not what it's about. It's not just about hearing or saying, let her speak. It's about actually hearing what that person is saying. So I also like what Tola said. Usually when I have meetings with the agency and somebody comes in and the person is, and I don't do it only for the girls, but what you find is that if you are in a meeting, you find out that some people just don't talk. Sometimes they say it's because of their position, they're junior people. For me, I don't care whether you're junior or not. If they have brought you to this meeting, there is probably something that you can add to it. So what I always try to do is let's go around the room. So irrespective of who you are, whether you're a guy or whether you're a girl, because I also think that we need to begin to allow the opposite sex also see how it should be done. So it's not just a function of I am allowing the girls speak. It's about everybody should have a voice. So like I always tell people in my office, it's not about equality, it's about equity. A lot of men think that we are trying to drive equality. I don't need to be equal with you. I am very different from you, but I am beautiful and I am rich in who I am and in what I have. All I just want is, as you say your own, let me say my own. And then together we'll come and agree on something. So I'm not trying to be you. I don't want to be equal to you. I can never be equal to you. You're a man, I'm a woman. That is clearly a difference. The way you think is totally different from the way I think. And I think better than you anyway. Sorry. So I'm like Tola on there. I think that I think that,
better.
I think that women have a trait that we don't even harness. We don't harness well. It's not to be biblical, so to speak, but we are creators naturally. We birth things. It's just natural. Even to the woman that does not like it, it's like you have your face and then you want to wear makeup. You must know how to wear it for you to look good. So it's not about you just saying, I have makeup. And in the same way, you have your hair on your head. You have to make that hair look presentable. So that in itself is you creating. Now, please tell me what the men do. They
wear boxers.
They nurture their beds.
There's really nothing to it. So for me, I feel like with women, we're naturally creators, but they stifle us, yes. But it's not just men that stifle us. Our mothers stifle us. They raise us to be in the kitchen, to cook, come and cook for your dad. Have you asked this person? Have you done X? So sometimes when we grow up, that thing is not just in the environment, it's even a part of us. When I also think about imposter syndrome, I've had it. In fact, I think I have it like every quarter. But what I find is that I don't have imposter syndrome every quarter because the men don't allow me. What I find is that I am the one that thought I couldn't do it. I'm the one that I thought I didn't deserve it. So somebody gives you an opportunity to do a project, you do it and you do it well. And then I'm there and I'm like, hey, we've done it. Oh, and do you understand? I'm second guessing myself. So it has nothing to do with anybody. So people should not tell you that imposter syndrome is because of somebody. It's
within you.
Where you think that you are not capable. And I think that comes from how we grow up. So I'm from a very typical Yoruba family, and it's not different from yours, Ngozi. The women should keep quiet and be in the kitchen. Growing up, when you're having a family party, the women are on one side cooking, and the men are on one side eating the food. Now, you can trust me growing up. Me, I was not on that side. I was usually on my dad's side trying to eat with him. And of course, they would say, look at this girl. So I'm one of those people that I call myself a tomboy because I just didn't want to do the conventional thing the girl had to do. So I wanted to do it differently. All through university, I don't know that I wore a skirt. Do you understand? It was just not one of those things. Like, and it had nothing to do. I was just more comfortable with wearing trousers and opening my leg, because too many times they told me to close my legs, and I like, I beg, sit like a lady. What does that mean? Do you understand? What does that mean? Sit like a lady. And then they've already told you what ladies must do. The men, on the other hand, there's something about men that I don't know. So in the same way I talk about women being creators, there's also some gifts that I think men have, wherein they're able to bring in people. So when you look at it, it's a boys' club. And everywhere there's always a boys' club. Somehow they manage to get themselves together. And maybe people say, yes, it's the alcohol or it's going out or what, I don't know what it is. But all I know is that somehow it's easier for two men to meet each other, not know each other's name, and all of a sudden they become friends. And now they, my guy, how you doing now? My guy, how you doing now? You find out that some of them, they don't know each other's name, but they've been friends for 10 years. And when you say, my guy, that's all it is. True. Now with we women, we don't do my, I don't even know. We don't know my guy. We don't know my girl. We don't know that's lady, that's girl, you know. So while Ngozi says that, yes, I may be one of those women that seemingly are not nice, what I actually try to then do is I actually leave my door open. I actually leave my door physically open, not because I don't like privacy, but for me, I think it gives a sense of openness. And anyone who comes in, I have made a note that when people come into my room and my office, I lift up my head and I smile, no matter what the mood is. So, you know, you come into the room and I might not be in the best mood, but I lift up my head and I smile. Now that's
you're not one of them now, Funmilayo. These people don't lift up head and smile.
But I have had to do this now because, like you said, even I got feedback that I wasn't approachable. And I'll tell you a simple, I'll tell you a story. So where I work today, I resumed, and this particular day, these 3 yellow girls walked in. I like to call them the 3 witches. So the 3 of them come in. Yes. Hello, can I, we need to have a meeting with you. They didn't call ahead. They didn't do anything. We need to have a meeting with you. My first instinct was to say, sorry, you need to book a room. But I just looked at that. A whole 3 women left their office to come to me. Let's, you know, let me humor them. So I said, come in. I got a seat for the 3rd person. Please sit. They sat down. So I said, may I know why you're here? And one of them goes on about, this was maybe my first week. Well, she's the project manager in the bank. There were some projects that they have given my team, and she wants to find out the status and blah, 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 blah. And I kept quiet, finished. Let which one finish? Which 2 spoke? Which 3 spoke? When they finished, I was like, how interesting. I said, I'm barely a week in here, and the 3 of you walk in here and you're asking me about a project. Excuse you. You know what? That project we are not even doing anymore. We're going to do a new set of projects. You can't do that. So I said, excuse me. You walked in here to ask me about something, and I've given you an answer. I'm not exactly sure what you were expecting. You didn't book a meeting. You haven't even told me what this project is. You're just talking. And that I'm sure before I came in, last week, somebody must have given you an update on this project. Why do you think you have to come to me? Well, you're the head of department. I said, exactly. I am the head of department. And as I can see, I have a pre-scheduled meeting right now. So you know what? If you really want to find out the status of this meeting, whoever gave you status, last week or 2 weeks ago or a month ago, please go back to them, because right now I have no status for you. But I can assure you that that project we're not doing. Anything else? The 3 of them looked at each other, said, thank you very much. And they walked out. Of course, hey, that girl, she's this, she's that, she's that. And I won't lie to you, I loved it. I was happy about it, because it just meant that when anybody was coming to my office, 1, if they wanted to have a meeting, they will book first. because the gist had gone around that if you want a meeting with her, you have to book first. And then the second one is better know what you are talking about when you are going to her. So, you know, and now what I'm saying to you is this is 3 women coming to meet me. I felt attacked. And this is by women that are like me, not by men. So at the end of the day, sometimes we do ourselves more of a disservice than the men. I cannot for the life of me remember any man that was that, I don't know what the word is, was like that. Yes, they come in, they want to ask you something, but you know the way a man comes in is so different. Oh, hi, how are you? Welcome to the bank. Yeah. They have this conversation with you, and then they say, oh, by the way, there's this project we're working on. I'd like you to, maybe when you settle in, you'd be able to tell us da. Their approach is totally different. But these ones, they packed themselves, they came, they wanted to come and show me that they are the ones that I met in the organization. Of course, me too, I show them that where me I'm coming from too. I have some angels that are with me. But I'm not sure that it's a male-female challenge per se. I think it's a we. What do we do? So how do we train our subordinates as well? You know, some of us have subordinates that we attend meetings and we don't have our subordinates say anything. I think it's bad leadership. You know, I think it's bad leadership. How can we go for a meeting and you do all the talking and you brought 3 other people with you, or even 2 other people, and you know, some don't even say good morning, and some, that's all they say, good morning. Now you're wondering, so you came here to say good morning, a whole university graduate, you left, traveled 3 hours in this Lagos traffic to my office to come and say good morning. It cannot be. You must say something at this meeting. So I think it's about giving the opportunity, but even we giving the opportunity to whether it's male or female and what have you. But then I also agree with Biodun. When I started out in advertising, and I had lots of women in advertising who supported me and who held me. So I think that different industries are also evolving at a different speed. So like Tola can talk about the creative industry, and the evolution in the creative industry, I can tell you, is 100 times better than in the bank, or as Ngozi said in her side, the evolution will be different because of the way the industry is structured. So we sit in meetings and in fact, it happens to me every time and I keep wondering what's happening. We're in meetings of like 20, 30 people, and there are only 3 women or 2 women, you know, and you're wondering, for how long will we continue this? And then if you talk too much, they say your own is too much. If you don't talk, they say, hey, we included a woman now and she didn't say anything. You know, so they will always give a reason. They will always say something. If you are bothered by what they will say, you're not going to move on. So I'm very much on Ngozi's side, where I don't care, I don't look at you, I can't be bothered about what or who or whatever it is. I'm just going to do me. And that's what I tell my people when they come in. Don't be afraid to challenge me. And if you can challenge me, Dara, you can challenge anyone in my organization. That much I can tell you.
So, Biodun, part of the conversation around meritocracy is that it builds generally on the assumption that objective evaluations are possible, and that, as we addressed earlier with Tola, that there's a need for fairness. Do you agree that meritocracy is, that there needs to be a balance between meritocracy and gender inclusiveness, or does true meritocracy automatically result in gender inclusiveness?
Yeah, so for me, the issue whether meritocracy can be objective, I think it can. Okay, so imagine a scenario, right? You have to fly in a plane, and then it's a woman flying, and she's not qualified. She's just a woman. Of course, you are going to get down from that flight. So for me, there are areas and there are lines of delineation. So you must not, and here, when we talk about meritocracy and inclusiveness, It is about how well or how capable this person is. I think someone that mentioned, it's not about handing out, it's not about handouts, it's not about doing anybody a favor. If you are called on to do a duty, it is because you can do it and you have the capacity and capability to deliver on it. So when it comes to the issue of meritocracy, we are talking about bringing in equity. I think, is it Funmi that said so now? You know, so it's about bringing equity to the table. It's about what can this person deliver. It's not an issue of fairness. Okay, let's make up the quota. Let's bring in one woman or the other. No, that's not it. And it's something that we need to address. And it doesn't even stop with women alone. So for instance, somebody has to drive a car. Do you want a good driver, someone who knows how to drive? Or, okay, it must be somebody from the north, or it must be someone that is 30 years old. No, you want somebody who can get in that car, drive it safely, and drop you where you are going. So the meritocracy can be objectively looked at, but then again, it must have a balance in including women who are able. It's not women asking for handouts. And I know women, the women I have met, they are not people looking for favors anywhere. They are people who can stand shoulder to shoulder to their peers anywhere in the world. So what we are saying is that give these people the opportunity to deliver, to give value, to be relevant. So that's what this is all about for me. Yeah.
Ngozi, do you agree, or do you have a different perspective?
Did I lose you?
No, we got you.
Were you talking to me?
Yes. Ngozi, do you agree, or do you have a different perspective?
I said, let's assume there are two
Yes,
candidates
can hear you.
for a role. Both equally qualified, both are ready to run. I'll pick the woman.
High five, high five, high five.
I won't pick her if she wasn't qualified. But if they're both qualified and they can both do it, simply because I've been in a department of 20 people where I was the only woman. It's justice. Come on. No.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Funmilayo, would you agree?
Of course, I don't even think it should be a question. I don't think it should be a question. If they're both qualified, why do I want to pick a man? I'd like you to explain why I should pick the man. I still don't understand it. They're both qualified. So yes, and it's merit. So if they're both qualified, I pick the woman. Like I said, I think that women can offer a lot of value, and we're not one directional. I find that a lot of men are very one directional. They think it's this way, then let's go this way. Coupled with maybe because my dad was that way, so I really don't want that. But women have a way of looking at it. In fact, what you find sometimes is that when you're working with women on assignments, even after you've decided, let's go this way, you sometimes get them coming back and say, well, I was thinking about it again, and I thought about this direction. I find I get that more from the females around me than from the men. I actually find that even for me, that's it. And it's not second guessing yourself, but it's just trying to look at it from another angle. So merit, yes, I strongly believe in merit. Strongly believe. You cannot do the work. See, if you cannot do the work, you become, what's the word? You become a problem for, yes, a burden. So I will not employ you because you're a woman and you cannot do the work. You have to be able to do the work. And then we'll go on from there. Yeah.
Can I offer a couple of thoughts on this topic, on this question? So I find that the word objectivity is a little bit problematic. By nature, we are not objective about anything. So when we attempt to use that as a qualifier, we are really doing ourselves a disservice. We're doing not just ourselves, but also the environment around us a disservice, because we are promising something that we cannot fulfill. We are born in society, we are acculturized in society that by nature raises us to be biased, right? So our biases are like within our DNA. So let's not lie to ourselves. The reason why the three of us can say we will hire the woman if we have two qualified candidates is because we are biased, right? And so the bias cannot be a lie. I will always hire the woman. Now, I think another thing I would like us to also maybe just have a different look at is how do we define merit? So I like what white people have done for us in certain ways. I still think colonizing, they need to be killed for that shit. However, they brought commerce, they brought organized business. We understand how to make money and we can be technocratic and all of those things. But where they've told us that merit implies that you've gone to university for 4 years and you have a degree means you can do X, Y, Z, I disagree with. So, when you see like many job postings from our organization, you always see there's a criteria for either you've gone to school, you've done your NYC, you've done maybe an advanced degree. It's just for formalization, which is a formality. I have hired a few people that do not have degrees. Unfortunately, they felt they needed to lie about their degrees status. And so that was the uncomfortable part. Because I feel like as a society, we need to begin to understand that going to university is a luxury. A lot of people cannot afford to go to a 4-year university, especially if you're going to be there for 6 years because your government cannot get the act together, or the alternative is a private university that is way too expensive, or maybe it's affordable, but it's not adequate for your needs, and so you have to supplement it through other means. We should not only use those like traditional hallmarks of success as our definition of merit. There was one particular girl that I hired, and she had lied about her qualifications, and maybe 4 or 5 months into her stay with us, we then realized it was a lie. And my disappointment was that she thought she needed to lie. But I came to understand why. She would never have had the courage to apply for the role without thinking that she needed to lie. We got over the lie, but my next goal was then to convince her that you can do this work without having a degree and without lying, And I feel like this generation of leaders, at least the 5 of us in this room, we can sort of challenge that expectation that you must have these criteria. The fact of the matter is that most of the things that you learn in school are useless. It's not going to apply to the real world, right? So all a 4-year university degree says is you have commitment, you have staying power, you can attain that goal of, well, it doesn't mean that you can do the work. And so you find organizations that spend 2 years training their staff. You're bound to do it. Many oil companies do it. So why am I going to use that degree as the sole decider of your quality, your qualification for a role? You see what I'm saying? So I want to encourage anyone that's questioning, as long as you can show capability to accomplish the task, which means you've either spent a month on some course on Udemy, or you spend 5 years in a mentorship or apprenticeship type of role with your auntie or your uncle, and you can actually communicate your abilities to do the task at hand, do not be afraid. Like, yes, it will be hard because it is unconventional, but it doesn't mean that you should not take the chance on yourself to apply for these roles. Yeah?
Sorry, Tola, perfect, spot on. And what I find is that you are right, and probably you are in a position to hire without all of that drama. But what I also find is that the reason why this qualification or guidelines have been put is also to guide the organization as well, to put some sort of structure around it. Now, I agree with you that the fact that you've been to 2 universities with a first class and a master's does not mean you know the job. But there are other things to look out for as well. And I think that, as you said, if you've gone to school and you can at least express yourself, then we should be able to give you a chance. What I find also is that sometimes the people who lie that they have this degree and all of that, it's not always just because they don't have it. Sometimes some of them had the opportunity to have it and didn't make use of it. Yep. So I guess that having that opportunity, when I look at myself, I studied political science and I've not used it. Well, I don't think I've used it for 1 day. All I've ever done is advertising and communication. But how did I get into it? I was in the process of attaining something around that. That's what opened my mind to, I can do this. And I did an internship. And then while I was doing the internship, I worked hard. I have 2 interns that are working with me. They're university graduates, but they said to me, we want to intern. So they know they can't come in because there's a structure or whatever, but they have decided to intern. So I think that we also have to begin to let people know that, yes, I may not have this qualification that does X, Y, Z, but you can try me. You can, give yourself that chance. I don't have it. I didn't go to school, but try me. In fact, in my organization, I think I've had so many people that haven't gone to school. And sometimes I wonder how I'm able to do it. But you know what? We start out with them being interns. They learn, like you said, 2 years they're doing the job. And we're like, this person can do the job. Okay, let us start him on this level and this. And before you know what's happening, what I also then do is, because the organization has said you need a BSc, you know what, enroll in one. So while you're doing your job, you are able to get, so at the end of the day, you still have that opportunity. So you are right. The Englishman has done something for us, but there's also a part for us as individuals to also help these people in doing. Because after the person works with you, how does the person work in another organization? They're still going to ask for this BSc anyway. So you might as well get, even if it's the simplest of it, at least get something that supports, because that's what we have here. But it doesn't mean that I don't let the person come in. It just means that I take you in, but I support your growth. And that's also us holding out a hand, for that person. Let me support your growth. Let me help you. So beyond this place that you are in, you'd be able to go into some other places, So I just thought to share that.
100%.
So we've spoken a bit about the role women have to play in lifting other women up and showing every other woman that they have a right to have a seat at the table. Also, also address the point of where men come into the conversation, and finally about individuals themselves and how to build merit for themselves, so that, as Funmilayo said, it's not just a case of equality, or it's not just a case of fairness, as Tola said, but actually equity.